Hi, colleagues. My name is Tim Faith, and I wanted to talk a little bit about an idea I had, particularly for other professors that teach law, on some things that you could do with your course in generative AI to help with course content for your students. So, one of the classes I teach is business law, and business law, there's a lot that changes over time. When you're dealing with a wide variety of topics that are really covered in a class like that. And one of the problems is that the textbooks that we use often have older cases in them. So, for example, I was looking at the employment section of this book that we put together in 2022, which is an open educational resource. And, abusive discharge is a tort. And again, the cases that are cited here from the 80s and the 90s, not really much recent that's here. It's just an ongoing problem for students that we're teaching from older materials. Sometimes it's easier because those cases are often shorter. But students' response to that is, look, I'm interested in recent stuff, and your textbook's from 1980, so maybe you need to do something about that. So the other side of it is we could just go and find recent cases. I mean, that's a legal research task. It's relatively straightforward to collect them. But the problem is, if you're thinking about the amount of reading that you're assigning, one case could be 15 pages of reading. And that may just be prohibitive. If you really wanted to cover the wide variety of topics that are in a course like this, it just doesn't work to add hundreds or thousands potentially of pages of additional reading for students that's just no chance for them to be able to do that. So one of the ideas that I had about this was that perhaps to supplement a book or just to generate materials that are maybe just jurisdiction specific. Maybe you just want to talk about Maryland law and your textbook is, national. And so you want to pull out some cases for students that are specific to a particular area. So the first thing you could do, of course, you could research this yourself if you wanted. But one of the features of Lexis is Lexis Protege, which you can ask its AI to be able to generate kind of a summary of the law. That's what the ask function does within Protege. So I'm looking for recent cases involving abusive discharge. And then I have a learning objective that I've developed already for this particular module. And so this will take a minute for Protege to kind of calculate what kind of fits with your question. And the reason why I like Protege is it also gives you cases and other citations, so you can just click on them and use them when you're developing, course content from it. But again, it's the full case. For example, it gives you a short summary, but if you want to actually have the students read the case, Haynes might be quite long. And again, some of these cases, especially recent ones, are likely to be that way. So using Protege to get started, right? And it gives you a lot of different cases that you could look through with citations and say, well, that's one that I really want to cover. So if I was to go back up and look, let's just say we're going to take this Haynes case, which is at 463 SW3D34. So let me go on Scholar, and I can look that case up to get the whole content of it. It's a 2015 case, so relatively recent. Maybe I don't want to do Tennessee law. I could go back to Protege and say, look, I'm just interested in Maryland cases, and it would be more specific. But, if you look at this, It's not a particularly long case, but what you find in cases is they often have stuff that's not the substantive law that you're interested in. For example, the procedural history, unless you're teaching civil procedure, the procedural history is probably not much of interest. Um, there's often a standard of review in trial court opinions and maybe appellate opinion. Again, it's not really relevant if you're just talking about abusive discharge. And some of these cases are particularly complicated. They might have many legal issues in them that are appealed, and you're really trying to focus on just one. So, one of the things that I have thought about is um, taking PDFs of cases and using AI to extract information from that case so that you can just get the summary or really get the language from the case that is relevant to your particular interest in it. And so on proffaith.com, you can build courses out. The course map gives you the alignment of your course and learning objectives. And what I'm working on at the bottom here in CO6 is this second learning objective, which has to do with wrongful discharge. So I'm going to add my just recently downloaded PDF of the Haynes case. I'm going to upload that to this particular course. So now that appears here. And if I go back to my course map, one of the things that I can do with cases, including the Haynes case, is to generate a case extract. And so it's in my list here as Haynes, and then I'd have to go and find my learning objective for the labor and employment law issue. And then I can generate a case extract from this. And what's going on in the background is that a request is being made to the AI. In this case, it's a Claude API call. And what it's doing is it's reading that PDF, getting the text out of it, and then it is trying to create an extract, which is just the parts of the case that are relevant to the particular learning objective that I had selected. So it's looking for at will, wrongful discharge, those sorts of keywords. That's what it's looking for, concepts like that. And so it will take a little bit while we're waiting. I have done this with a few other cases, and what they will do is they will create a text file that is just the extracted parts that we're interested in. And so what you could do with that then is you can build a case extract yourself with the text that you've been provided to save you some time, right? You can edit it down. What I tend to do with these is to put them in a two-column format. So I'm doing some stylistic things so that all my case extracts look the same. And then from there, once that's ready, I can also generate items from uh, that particular case. And so if I go to generate items from course materials and I choose the Haynes case, I can tell it I'm just interested in this and I want to generate some questions. So students can read the case extract, which hopefully is shorter than the original opinion, only the relevant parts, the substantive legal issue I'm interested in. And then at the same time, at the end, I could ask them some questions about that case. What did you get out of this case? Did you understand what it was about? Just sort of basic, how does the one relate to the other? And again, that is another call to, in this case, ChatGPT to generate those questions, those items, which are importable from a text file into Brightspace. Now, I don't know if, that's a relatively short case, so it's here now. Um, and I can open up that file. Now, if I make a new document so you can actually see this, let me make sure I'm sharing my new document. So I have my new document here, and then I have my case extract. So let me just copy paste it So this is 4 pages. Okay, so it's a little bit shorter than the original. And it's giving me some markers to tell me that, it took it in chunks. So it's looked at parts of the case um, here. Okay. And then where it cuts things out, it puts these ellipses into it. So what I would be doing with this then is I would put in the citation, which is 463 Southwest 3D 34. And then that's Tennessee Supreme Court from 2015. All right. And if I really want to be fancy, I'll make sure I italicize the case name. Okay. And then I have the document. So let me make this a 2 column. And I'm going to make it Times New Roman, which is a little bit smaller text. Okay. So that gets it down to 3 pages. And of course, I have some gaps here in my in between paragraphs. That's just sort of my default template in Word, which I'd have to go in and manually fix that. And the other thing I was doing was taking the time to make this full justified. So I might actually be able to get this down to just 2 pages of reading instead of 4 with just a few little edits here um, that I'm making to the document. Okay, and then I probably would take the time to read through, right? Make sure that this makes sense. It did put double quotes around some of the paragraphs because, it thinks it's taking it from a source, and so it's trying to be ethical about it. What I'm just doing is saying, well, this is the whole opinion, less the stuff that I have cut out from here. So the quotes aren't really relevant for what I'm trying to do. Okay, but let's just say that was good enough, right? So here I have my case opinion, so I can save this. And and what I generally do then is when I am going to upload it to my course, I'm going to save it as a PDF document. And that way it also is accessible, right? Because there's an export feature in Word when you save it as a PDF that it'll make it accessible for disabled students that might need to use a screen reader. Okay, so I have my Haynes opinion. And then if I go back, let me refresh here. So I have Haynes here as the extract, and I also have multiple choice questions that I have generated that are just a CSV file that's in the Brightspace comma delimited format for multiple choice questions. So what I could do with the parts then is I could then go into my Brightspace course and I might have logged out. No, I've been gone for a while. So anyway, so I would go and I would upload my Word document that I made into a PDF. So let me grab that. And then the other thing that I would do is I would build a section in the question library, which I'd have to go back and look. I think this is module 13. So this would be module 13. Right. And so I have that section at the very bottom of my list here. So then I can do upload a file. And so I had downloaded, or no, I did not. I have to click on it. Okay. So I've downloaded that little text file. I'm going to drop that here, and then I can just import these. And so these are the 5 questions that AI generated from that particular case, which is get relatively short. But it's the questions it's creating or the items that it's creating are related to the learning objective that we're trying to, what are you trying to get out of this case for assigning it? So then, I would still look through this, right? I probably would have had to have read the case, um, and is this really relevant? Is a whistleblower something I want to talk about? That's not unrelated to the employment law unit. Um, and it may be I don't want all these questions, right? I could always go back and have it generate something other than multiple choice questions. Proffaith.com does support true, false, and matching and fill in the blank type questions as well. Um, but some of these are questions I think that make sense. Um, so I'm done with that. And so what I can do next is I can create a short little quiz. And then I can add questions from the uh, section that I had created earlier. Okay, and that'll create 5 questions here. And this is homework. So for my classes, I generally don't care how many times they take it. And in fact, for these, it might be easier if they just answer the ones they got wrong, if they take it a second time, just to get the whatever the additional homework point is, make that visible. Okay, and so I have a case extract that I created with AI in however many minutes we've been talking, and I created a short quiz. And so then what I'm doing in my Brightspace configuration is I have an employment law checklist, which is the activities that students can do for employment law. And so if I go into this, which already has some other items in it, what I could do is create a new item to read. And in here, I could say some things about what I'm trying to get you to do. And I can insert the extracts so they can just simply um, get it right in my and then I can insert the quiz, which I created as well. And so the students, um, have both a reading assignment that kind of augments the materials that they already have in the textbook. And then I have a way to verify that they got something or the appropriate things at least out of the case without having to explain to them civil procedure and the 38 other potential legal issues that cases deal with that maybe aren't relevant to what I'm trying to teach for this particular module, right? And so then I can save that. And then I can organize this a little bit. So maybe I want them to look at Haynes before they do some of these other activities like the discussion. So I can reorder that so that it's clear to students. Maybe listen to the lecture and then you get to the Haynes case and talk about, read that and actually answer the questions about that. And then, the students have a list of things that they know what to do and more or less the order that they should do them in. And I'm able to connect, why are we working on all this stuff? I can, make it much more explicit, in fact, by just simply taking, um, the specific course objective and putting it right in the checklist itself. Um, Again, helping students to understand why we're doing what we're doing in this particular module, and working through these materials. So again, It would be rinse and repeat. Of course, depending on how many cases that you'd want to add that are more recent on a particular topic or a particular section of the course, you could start with Alexis AI. You could uh, give it some information about maybe the jurisdiction you're interested in, the learning objective that you're trying to supplement for particular cases, and get that research from the AI, get the case, create a PDF of it, and then upload it to proffaith.com and let the AI generate a case extract that you can then edit to your template, and then also create items from it that you can use in your Brightspace course. And I think that pretty powerful technique potentially. If you're really trying to focus on particular areas of law and you really want to get recent cases but not be dragged down by all of the other extra information that's in those cases, you have a way of using your ally generative AI to do all that.